I had a madman lunch today, so I had several old fashions. I'm kidding.
Did you really?
No, but that'd be funny if I showed up drunk.
Funny's a word. Funny's a word. That's true. That's true.
Have you started recording?
No. Well, we were recording, but we're not recording the show. We're just catching if someone says something stupid. Then I'll use that.
I was gonna say you just got it.
Yeah, possibly.
You count on me, girls.
Count on you, brother. All right. Welcome to an all-new episode of Work in Progress with John Lane and Will Barfield. This podcast explores leadership traits under stress with a special guest each week. We use a simple and accurate OAD assessment to identify key personality traits or superpowers, as well as the shadow side, kryptonite traits that appear when we're under stress. As always, we'll have some pod banter, shameless plugging, and we'll even let our guests talk for a bit. Of course, no humble brags. Welcome to the show. Hi, everybody. As always, I used to catch Will on that for like 5 times in a row, but then he caught on. But our guests don't. Welcome to a brand new episode of Work in Progress with John Lane and Will Barfield.
That's right.
Will.
Hello, I'm well. How are you?
Heard you had a good lunch.
I did.
Did you tip well?
I did. My wife made lunch, and I tipped her well.
That's always smart. That is always smart. Well, let's get into it. Got some banter to start. I'm wearing my pod shirt. For some reason, this just keeps coming out of the drawer when podcast time. I'm recording from home today, so I guess that's why it came out.
It's a solid pod shirt.
It's got
it's got some color variety. It's very lively.
A shirt of color. Yeah, so that's good. I'm going through my banter. Oh, yes. I just wanted to applaud you for only being 5 minutes late for the pod. So thank you.
And I was still on a call when I showed up.
And you were still on a call.
I was later than 5 minutes.
So that's
and then I had to get my headset to work. So I was about 8 minutes late.
So that's professional. That's good. Thank you.
Fashionably late.
Let's just go with late. So the only real banter I have, besides being critical of you, which is normal.
This is episode, all of them in a row for that.
Yeah. We actually have dates for the shows that are commemorating, that's a big word, commemorating our 1-year anniversary. So on October 26th, we are going to do a LinkedIn Live podcast. Now, note to self, learn how to do a LinkedIn Live podcast. At
least by the 26th, maybe by the 25th.
I am working on that. And we are going to have a special guest. Oh, my God, he or she is going to blow your socks off. Second, on 11/9, we're going to have a panel show. So we are going to break format. We are all going to be together, 4 of us. We're going to have one guest from each quadrant come and represent their color. So,
wow.
Going to be interesting. Doing it live.
It's a big fall for us.
Big fall.
Big fall. It's like, in television, all your shows debut in the fall, right? The new shows. It's a fall debut. It's like sweeps. But sweeps in the fall.
Sweeps month, yeah. It's a sweeps month, yeah. Anyway, I'm John Lane.
I am Will Barfield.
And we are
a work in progress.
As always, we have a guest.
Oh, a magnificent one.
Good guest, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And Ron, welcome. As you can see by our high production value animation, you are our special guest today. And that, let's be honest, the today is the important part because, all of our guests are special. But you're special today. Yeah. So
especially special.
Why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah, I love it. First off, thanks for having me on here. It's an honor. I love all these work in progress podcasts and loving to be a guest on the pod. So,
and you said you've seen all of them twice, right?
Twice, yep, at least.
He binged
so, like I think it averages about 2. It averages about 2.5.
Yeah, well, that's good. And he didn't wear glasses before he watched them. So, as the Surgeon General says, prolonged exposure could lead to blindness. So we don't recommend. Look at Will. I watch all the shows. I have to edit them. Will has not watched one episode, and look at those baby blues on him. Perfect eyesight. I mean, they're a bit ugly, but still, they work.
Mine get hidden.
Well, I'm just glad that you binged it, and it's bingeable. Just sit down with a tub of ice cream and go.
Love it.
And go.
Love it.
Well, what do you do for a living, Ron? If that's your real name.
Yeah, no, it is indeed my real name. So I appreciate that. But yeah, as of recently, I became a sales consultant.
Cool.
To really help founders kind of push past their founder-led sales stage, and that's done in kind of a few different models, but mainly it's been sales audits and helping them understand where the efficiencies and deficiencies are in their overall sales process. And kind of what led me to that is a host of leadership positions on the sales side, both as VP of sales, director of sales, manager of sales, et cetera, over a course of 15 plus years with different tech companies in the Triangle area. Well, I guess, and beyond too, not just in the Triangle area, but.
Well, you know what I think about that sales audit. I think that is an amazing calling card, and you're right to focus on that. It's not all you can do. Maybe it's even a tip of the iceberg of what you can do, but every sales organization could use an objective sales audit. So well done narrowing in on that.
Yeah, Ron, I've known Ron for a while. He and I have interacted in the industry, and he's just essentially, going to market and doing for others, what he's done internally more than once. So he's well equipped to help these founders, get out of their own way.
I think that's great. And
if they'll listen.
Yeah, and given that
that's a big part.
Yeah, again, to listen. Yeah, well, as long as they pay, it's not listening.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
Fair point. All right, well, shall we get into it, folks?
I'd like to.
Let's do it.
Will, cue the music, please. No,
you don't want me singing.
That's true. We might need some music. That's not.
You want some like some really?
No, I think next year we just. As we do improvements, I'm thinking about ways to up the production value. But for now, it's me and us and our purple. We talk about leadership traits under stress. Funny story. I was walking to work the other day, and a fan came up to me and said, "Hey, John, where do you get the leadership traits under stress for the show?" Happens all the time, right? Well, we get them from where, Will?
We get them from OAD, from the assessment.
Correct.
It's not a test.
Not a test. Very good. And tell us a little bit about the OAD assessment or survey.
Well, one of the things that you and I love about it is it's brief. It's easy to administer.
Yes.
It's, for its brevity, incredibly accurate. It surfaces deep and meaningful insights and actionable traits. And you can work with it independently or in tandem with other leadership management tools, etc.
Wow, you did that so well. So that's awesome.
Ron could do this. He could do a sales audit and roll the assessment in. I mean, he'd be a dangerous.
Well, we've talked about that. Trust me, we've talked about it. Yeah.
I can't imagine that you brought that up to him.
I gave him a free cup of coffee, and we talked about that. So that's another for another time.
Sounds like it was maybe free money, like you didn't pay for the coffee, but it was.
It's a longer-ish story. Okay, pod note. I got to remember something. Yes. Okay. So here's how we get into this. We begin every episode by talking about the OAD leadership style matrix. And Ron, how many quadrants are there?
I think we got 4.
And how many typical traits?
13.
Wow. I don't have to do anything around here.
Yeah, you don't.
But we look.
You just set it up so well.
Thank you. Yeah, you can't even tell we're doing it. See, well, move my mouse. Move my pointer. I can't get it anymore. That's so weird. Can you look at it back in and out? Thank you.
Yeah, you move the slide back in the corner now.
Yeah. Oh, right. Perfect. Thank you. All right. So in OAD, Will, you do this. First, we look at generalist.
Yes.
Specialist.
Mm-hmm. That's one cut.
We call that substance. Mm-hmm. And then we look at style. And Will, what's style based on?
Socially oriented versus technically oriented.
Very nice. And then what am I?
You are a socially oriented generalist in the builder quadrant.
And a?
What are you, negotiator?
Negotiator.
Yeah.
And what are you?
I am a technically oriented generalist in the architect quadrant, and I am a developer.
And Ron, what are you?
I'm a socially oriented generalist.
Do it the right way.
In the builder.
You are a quadrant. Socially
oriented generalist
in the
builders quadrant,
and a
negotiator.
Beautiful.
Oh, so he's exactly the same as you.
Yeah. Almost. We're going to get to that. But
like twins.
Yeah, no, we got a lot of that. So that's what we're going to explore today. We're going to explore the superpowers and kryptonite of a builder quadrant negotiator. Wait, though, with a twist. So, Will, do your business.
Ron, how does it feel to have spent 5 or 10 minutes taking this assessment and to have your history and personality traits and everything compressed into a 2-dimensional table?
I have always loved these personality tests and traits or whatever you want to call them. Yeah, not a test. Sorry, these surveys.
Will come at you if you say test again. And
all right, sorry, I don't want to be
do it. He'll be right to do it. Okay.
Does that mean the pointer is going to come like at my head or something like that?
Something like that.
Very dangerous.
Very dangerous. Yeah.
No, it is cool to kind of see and kind of put it in.
Well, you're a self-reflective person, so yeah,
for sure.
Okay.
And what did you think about the relative speed versus accuracy, Ron, in terms of how much time it took to take it versus the results?
I mean, it literally took me like 5 minutes, if that, to kind of go through all the traits, and the accuracy that came through is pretty mind-boggling, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I love that. Look at that. It's so mind-boggling it disappeared.
True.
Wait.
Where'd it go? He'll bring it back.
I'll tell you what I did. You're going to laugh. 1 second. I'm calling a penalty on myself. So I took I got even more to fix that. I took the generic one and I just dropped his chart in there, and the generic one has low P. I didn't even notice it. You didn't even notice it. So I had to change it to high P, and it still isn't even right. So I've got a blooper for next week. If you help me remember it. Let's carry on this high quality episode. So Ron is, because let's break it down. So to get in the quadrant, we look at your relative traits. So we look at your A and your D. If your A is greater than your D, you are a generalist. His A is to the right, therefore greater than the D. We look at the E and the D, and the E is greater to the right of D, so that is more socially oriented generalist. But you notice variation. And this is what I didn't pay attention to when I built the slide, was that Ron's P, patience, is way to the right. And that is kind of unusual in sales land, and also unusual for any of the builder quadrants, because the builder quadrants are typically all mid to low P, but not Ron. So we're gonna dig into that. And then I'll just say this, a little inside baseball, but we don't usually talk about this, but Ron has a very high VL, versatility level, which means he is able to act outside of his personality traits to adapt his personality or adapt his behavior much easier than the average person. So for a salesperson with this high P, that's not super urgent. But I believe Ron is able to act in the moment outside of that chill zone and turn into a raving maniac come the end of a month or a quarter. True?
Yes, 100% true. I like the raving maniac.
As VP of sales people go, particularly in startup software, I think you use the word chill, John, and I'll say for as many of them as I've interacted with, worked with, and interviewed, Ron's laid back, very calm, relaxed demeanor is aberrant, but you can't mistake that for passivity, or disengagement, and when he's got to be on, he's on, and that VL allows him to turn that switch back and forth, and it doesn't exhaust him because he's not getting that far out of his character.
That's exactly right. Well done, Will. You've been paying attention.
Nope.
All right, Will, do some work here, brother.
So Ron, anyone who lands in that upper right quadrant and gets a generic builder negotiator profile is going to get these typical superpowers. You're a variation. So, some of these may not feel as accurate as others. These are, for someone like John, who's probably more of a typical builder negotiator profile in terms of his trait layout. Yours is not that way. But is there one of these that you believe really speaks to you and your personality, or that others talk about that's one of your traits that really you feel like is a superpower?
Yeah, I'd definitely say there's a couple of them here, but optimistic demeanor is one that's pretty high for me. I tend to be called optimistic quite a bit.
Glass half full.
Absolutely.
Always.
And on the kryptonite side, again, you're a bit of a variation, so not all of these may scream at you, but is there one here that you have noticed in challenging situations can become a weakness, or that others have pointed out in the past?
Yeah, I think the third one there, becoming too concerned with pleasing others and overcommitting. I've seen that come up quite a bit.
Yeah. Will, overcommitting I think that comes up every 3 shows or so.
Yeah, I mean, as many builders as we've had on here, John, that's up there a lot. So that tends to be a serial weakness among people in this quadrant, that they just, the people pleasing part can end up being a flaw.
Is serial weakness like Lucky Charms?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep. Magically delicious.
The sad part is
we're in your humor.
We're in the same quadrant, and I had the same exact thought, John. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well, Ron, you went through this exercise, took the assessment, communicated with John, read the results, looked at the superpowers and kryptonite, and you wrote back with some comments on each of these. Can you walk us through these bullets here and why you picked these particular superpower items to talk about?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, really, the 3, I didn't even mention the optimistic piece of it, that I did on the last slide, but these are the kind of the 3 that stuck out to me as reading through my profile. But self-confident, I think that comes from just the years of experience and kind of the domain that I'm in, and kind of understanding what I need to do in order to be successful, not just myself, but also companies that I work with, et cetera. So that helps a lot in terms of personality style. Calm and patient. That's one that's
the P.
I feel like that's really one of my a lot of the direct reports I've had over the years really kind of brought this out and said that they really appreciated how calm and patient I was. From my standpoint, sales as it is, anyone who's worked in sales knows it's it's really hard. It's really stressful. And they don't need their manager to tell them that. They know they're in it, but really having that calm and patient presence with them when it does come to the nitty gritty and end of quarters, end of months, end of years, etc. Having that patience and having that calmness to almost like shoulder to cry on type of thing. It's kind of become a superpower and why people like me as a leader, and kind of tend to gravitate towards doing better work for them or for me and the overall team, just mainly because of that calm demeanor and helping them. And
it's rare for sure. It's rare for sure. Will, you've seen a million of them, million sales leaders, right?
Yeah, not something I encounter very often. And your VP of sales can tend to be a heck of a lot more intense, and want to be heard, and want to dominate, and do what I say because I say you should do it. And that's just never been the way that Ron's operated.
Nice.
Yeah, but then it's funny, like it kind of directly goes to that third point too, right? Like the ability to flex to meet other personalities. Like obviously there's a bunch of people that are type A in a sales role who you need to like kind of hound a little bit and just tell them how it is sometimes. The ability to flex to do that has really helped in my career for sure.
It's great.
Love it. Okay, now weaknesses.
Boom.
Right? Ron may be nearly flawless, but he does have some weaknesses.
I was going to say, like, I didn't even write these down. Where did they come from, John? I didn't have any weaknesses. No, I'm just kidding.
Our spouses have no weaknesses, but we have to admit ours on this program. So your kryptonite, Ron, tough situations, might miss the quarter, or, companies, struggling to raise money. You're feeling tense and worried. These things come out. Talk about why you put these down.
Yeah, I think just in general, there's, I kind of fit all of these things, but like from a story standpoint or like an anecdote standpoint, like procrastination, I tend to focus a lot on the priorities and when those priorities need to get done, right? So like if I have multiple projects that I'm working on at the same time, I will likely put that off for as long as possible because at that particular time, I will not view it as a priority until like, I don't know, like a day before, a couple days before, depending on how big the project is. I'll tend to just go all in on it and kind of put myself off into a corner, focus up and go at it. So I think there's that kind of shows that VL a little bit and that the ability to kind of flex a little bit. And but I do tend to procrastinate on a lot of things. My wife can probably attest to that. That I definitely procrastinate. Like, hey, we need to get the laundry done. It's like, yeah, I don't view that as a priority right now because I have some clothes that I could wear, but but that is obviously not something that I should do often.
And I wrote in here, high P with low D, danger, Will Robinson, because that is a classic procrastination profile. And you really have to warn against it because that super low D, upside, great delegator. Downside of that is not important to me. So if somebody is super chill and there's something that isn't important to them, that thing ain't going to get done. And so it's good that you're aware of it and can fight back against it, even though it's your nature.
Yeah, for sure. And then when like we're talking about stubborn and stuck on my ways, I've kind of seen this a lot over the years in the sense that like that self-confidence is great, but sometimes it can come back to bite you on the opposite end of it with like, all right, hey, I'm confident that this is the right way to do it. And we should just be doing it this way. When, there's probably room for healthy debate around doing something a certain way. This could come down to sales stages, like what you name them, what the process is for. It's like, well, I've done it this way so many different times, but looking at an individual company and being able to tell them, or like be able to flex in that way a little bit and say, all right, well, this could be a good way for them, and understanding them a little bit better, rather than saying like, no, my way or the highway, because I can tend to do that both in personal and professional world.
And you said earlier, people pleaser.
Yeah, that's this is one that I've kind of like my entire life, right? Like I love to help people, and kind of that coach mentor type of model. But there's been multiple seasons and years that I've overcommitted both professionally and personally. Like I like to coach high school baseball. And then I also like to coach my kids in their baseball. I also have a job that pays for all that. So saying yes to a lot of that stuff has come back to bite me. And then it's like, oh, hey, I have no time left for actually hanging with the kids and not coaching them, or hanging with the wife and going on date nights, things like that, because I've overcommitted too much. So I've definitely kind of got into this too much just because of that helping nature, and wanting to make people better at different things that they're trying to accomplish.
I want to ask a question before we leave the slide, John.
Yes, sir.
About that. I'm asking this because I have a little bit of history and knowledge, but I'm not going to share it up front. How do you believe that wanting to please people, wanting to get it right, wanting to see things through to conclusion, that weakness, how has that impacted you as a leader in some of these small company settings where you've been? Have you found yourself hung up on a decision, hanging on too long, giving somebody too much rope, in that, looking back at hindsight, now that you're a consultant trying to help these people get out of their own way, that you didn't get out of your own way?
Like there's been plenty of instances like that, like especially when you said the too much rope. There's been instances in the past where there's performance issues, or with people that I've worked with, and hey, they're a good person, right? They're doing everything that they can to be successful, or I truly believe that I can help coach them, and get them to the level that they need to be at, in order to be successful in the organization. When that kind of brings in the stubbornness a little bit too, and stuck in the ways that I have that ability to do it. But in reality, it's probably better for both parties if you just cut it out early, because then they're going to be in a spot where they're more successful. We're going to be in a spot where we're more successful, and it makes it kind of a lose-lose all around rather than a win-win.
Well, that high E in sales, it can be great for like charging into a conference and just meeting prospects and doing all that. But it also, on the flip side, can be a seller becomes more tied to their client base than their company. So you'll hear things like, oh, she didn't sign the contract because her kid had to get her wisdom teeth out or something like that. And so they're bringing in sort of that outside perspective, which is fine to know your clients and stuff, but you got to realize what your job is. And so that high E on the managerial side can be seen as, just like you were saying, harder to get the tough conversations going, which doesn't help anybody. You throw that high P on to chill the potential for procrastination, and you can have somebody who's floating, and you're not doing them any favors either.
Right.
So I totally see that.
And for somebody who loves to coach, right, and there's something soul feeding about getting someone past an obstacle and helping them get better, and it can that can get in your way for sure. John has moved the slide, which means he's ready to transition. And I'm being held to a short question here. So, Ron, we've already done a lot of this as we talked through the last couple slides, but going through this OAD process and then being on the show with us today, what did you gain, gather, find that was new that you can apply as leadership lessons from this experience to your current work and your career moving forward?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is the understanding of procrastination, and when that is popping up, and when to apply that in a different model, and flexing that high P down to a lower P.
That's great, and that again, that high VL you have allows you to do that more easily and for longer periods of time than an average person. So I'm really glad you honed in on that. Anything else for Mr. Nelson here, Will?
Well, I think as he embarks on this career as a consultant, I think it's going to be interesting for him because there's a little bit of natural separation now.
Yeah,
and it probably will be a little bit easier. You're going to have to separate and be able to have difficult conversations and render advice, but it's not going to be something where it is so personal from an ownership perspective. You're there to guide them. They're paying you for your input. So I think some of that procrastination, rope giving, some of that stuff will probably abate a little bit when you're able to separate to a degree as a consultant, more of an outside, weighing in.
We're definitely going to do your perceived job behaviors again, like let's say Thanksgiving time after you've been doing this 5-6 months.
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
Good.
Can I do this? Great. Ron, so you went through this exercise with us. We would love for you to nominate someone who you think would be great to be next on the show, that would participate, enjoy, gain benefit from this, and be a good interactive guest. You got anybody in mind?
Yeah, I do. I think you should look at Chessy West over at Kevel. She's a CFO.
Ooh, a CFO.
Yes, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Will, do you know Chessy?
I don't, but
new friend.
Ron, all we'd ask is that you introduce us to her.
Yeah.
Warm it up and see if she'll join us. What is it that made you think of her?
Worked with her from a leadership perspective over the last 3+ years or something like that, at the end of my tenure at Kevel, and just thought that she would be a good fit from a leadership standpoint. And my guess is it would probably be different quadrants. It sounds like you've had a few builders like that made me think of her to kind of help get in the finance side, and rather than more on the builder side.
Yeah, my guess is she'll probably land in the lower left.
That's what I was just about to say. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great.
Technically oriented specialist, expert. A lot of your finance is going to be over there. Be interested to see if it's any different. Of course, we've been surprised before. We had a human resources person show up as a builder, and that was very rare. That was rare. Sarah McVeigh.
1 out of 100. Yeah. Yeah. Will?
Yeah.
You are Will Barfield.
I am. I have been for a while, and you are John Lane.
And I've been that even longer than you, but we are
a work in progress. Yes.
Ron, thanks for being on. Great
show. Thank you, Ron. This is a lot of fun.
Thank you,
Will, for being late, but sorry.
I was late, but my question was short. Made you happy.
You made up for that. You shrunk the gap. Bye, everyone. Work in Progress is a podcast presentation of Slipshod Productions. Available on LinkedIn and YouTube. Executive produced and starring John Lane and Will Barfield. Talent booking, production, and editing by John Lane. Thanks for watching. See you next week.